So many of you know, and some of you were on the retreat we had last week at Joshua Tree at Damadena, which was really quite lovely. And I came home with a very tender heart. And I think that happens a lot when you are able to have a continued practice, a concentrated practice, not necessarily concentration, but time. You can take an amount of time for practice. You're able to slow down and really let some distractions go, and there's a tenderness that arises. I mean, it happens on a residential retreat. Many times it happens in a day long or even a half day. Just this, when you allow yourself to have a period of practice, there's this tenderness. And so I want to revisit the heart practices because I think it's really important, especially right now, to uh, recognize the importance of it, and maybe investigate how to cultivate a tender heart, because we can't always go on retreats. We don't always have the luxury of time to practice, but there are ways that we can cultivate it, because a heart that's open to all, that wishes well for all. And many of you are familiar with the standard practices that we do, the metta practices. Sharon Salzberg wrote the book Loving Kindness, which is a beautiful book that kind of goes into detail about loving kindness and compassion, appreciative joy, equanimity, and really talks about meditation practices to support that. And you have particular phrases for metta or for compassion, and you recite these phrases to different categories of people, to ourselves, to loved ones, to strangers, to perhaps difficult people, and to all beings. And it's interesting, those practices are not in the suttas. The Buddha didn't teach those particular practices. Those were developed later by a monk in several centuries after the Buddha, Buddhaghosa, who lived in the 5th century in Sri Lanka, and he wrote the Visuddhimagga, which is this real systemization of the suttas. It kind of took the Buddha's teachings and really systematized it, and he put this practice of the loving kindness practices together. And he said, I can't remember the exact quote, but he said, like, metta melts the toxins of the heart, something to like that effect, which I really love. It's a really beautiful idea of melting the toxins of the heart. And what the Buddha taught in the suttas, and it's found in multiple suttas, is he says we sit imbued with a mind or a heart of goodwill, kindness, compassion, joy, appreciative joy, equanimity. It's a natural arising of the insight practice. When we have let go of greed and hatred and delusion, when we are no longer, chasing things or pushing things away, then the natural arising are these beautiful qualities that are there when we get rid of ill will. He says, as I said, there's many suttas that talk about it, but one of them says, thus above, below, and all around, everywhere, in its entirety, he keeps pervading the all-encompassing cosmos with an awareness imbued with goodwill, metta, abundant, expansive, immeasurable, without hostility, without ill will. And then it says the same thing for compassion and appreciative joy and equanimity. We sit above and below, all around, pervading awareness with this. And so it's when we have gotten to that place, that's the natural result. These beautiful qualities that are covered over by anger and craving and jealousy and all those not pleasant emotions that can tend to take over. These beautiful states, are incompatible with ill will. And when we really bring mindfulness to our practice, we see where we're caught up in wanting things to be different. And when we can release that, that's when we have this tender heart. However, it's not necessarily that easy, because we have these conditionings that we've developed preferences, we've developed ideas, we've developed biases, we see things a certain way. And so we oftentimes need help, which is where Buddhaghosa's teachings, his meditations, his practices come in really handy. They're really helpful. We can't just power our way into kindness, like bear down and be kind. It kind of defeats the purpose. Grit your teeth and smile. That's not how it works. So I want to talk a little bit about what each of them are. And Ian, at the retreat last week, I think I'm quoting this correctly. I might not, but he said, and it's a beautiful thing. He said, I think he was talking about metta, but I'm going to say it's all of these. They're a gift of the heart to ourselves and to others. I think I'm misquoting, but it's something to that effect, that these qualities, these practices are a gift we give to ourselves, a gift we give to others. And so the first one, loving kindness, metta, goodwill, friendliness, and metta is the Pali term, is the practice of unconditional, inclusive love and benevolence towards all beings, without discrimination. Unconditional. It involves wishing for the well-being, happiness, and safety of all sentient beings. Pretty simple. Pretty simple. Not easy. There's a difference between easy and simple, but it's pretty simple and straightforward. The Metta Sutta talks about how we want the good, want happiness and health for all beings, omitting none. I find those two words to be extremely important, omitting none. And then compassion is the aspiration to alleviate the suffering of others. It's that empathetic feeling of wanting to remove pain and sorrow. And the phrase is, may your suffering decrease. May you be at ease. So there's this wish for for others not to suffer. Karuna, the word that's translated as compassion, means quivering of the heart. We are touched by others. And in later traditions, there are all these images of bodhisattvas who are beings who work for the liberation of all. And there's the image of Guan Yin, who is one of the embodiments of compassion, and she sits in what's called the pose of royal ease, where she has one of her legs crossed under her and the other, she's sitting with her knee and her arm resting on her knees. So there's this ease about her, but her foot's ready to jump into action. She hears the cries of the world, which I think is beautiful. And so that's compassion. We have this understanding of others' suffering and this deep desire to alleviate it. And then the next one, I think, is one of the most challenging ones. I think it has been for me, and that's appreciative joy. And what that is being happy at the good fortune of others. That is like challenging, because so often we come from this place of thinking there's lack. Not even necessarily consciously, but there's this, ooh, they got theirs, where's mine? If they got that, will there be enough for me? There's jealousy and, envy. Instead, we're just really genuinely happy for the good fortune of others, or for something that others are happy about. I went to the store the other day and I was buying some cat food. And when I was checking out, I was asking the cashier, I said, how are you doing? And he said, oh, I'm really tired. He said, I'm training for the LA Marathon, which is next week. And I said, oh, good for you. He said, I've never done it before. And so he says, and so he's running every day. He had just run 20 miles. And he said, so I'm tired. And I was excited for him because he was excited. And he said, you want to see a picture of me? And I said, sure. And he ran into the back of the store. He came back with a picture of what he looked like in November and how much fitter he is now, because he's been running all this time and practicing. And he was so excited. And I was excited for him. I said, my girlfriend's running. I'm going to be there. I will look for you and cheer you on. And I doubt if I'll see him because there's probably 20,000 people running in the LA Marathon. But his joy, I was able to experience his joy, because there's not only do we wish joy and happiness and good fortune for others, but when we cultivate these heart practices, there's a sense of connection we get with other beings. We're just really connected in a heartfelt way, literally a heartfelt way. And so I don't ever want to run a marathon. I mean, there's not jealous, but there's no jealousy there. But there's this joy. There's this joy. His joy allowed me to be joyful. It's beautiful when you think about the quality that way. We get to celebrate things multiple times. And then equanimity is the practice of cultivating an even-minded mental state. We know we have clarity, we have wisdom, and equanimity is often said it's an appropriate response to what's happening. And equanimity offers an appropriate response. And so if there is something joyful, then you can be joyful. If there's something challenging, then you can perhaps be compassionate towards others and towards ourselves. And then overarching is we move through the world with metta, with kindness, with friendliness for all. That's the invitation to that is in the second factor of the Eightfold Path, wise intention, right intention, where we have a heart of kindness and compassion. So this goodwill towards all beings that we just carry with us all the time. And when we have equanimity, we have this capacity to pause, and allows us to respond appropriately. We're not just reacting, because reactivity is normally how we move through the world. We have this reactivity, and it's often fueled by emotions that we may not even notice at the time until we stop and pause and pay attention or reflect on what we did yesterday. Oh, I can't believe I did that this morning. It's like, oh, I was really angry, or oh, I was afraid or jealous or whatever. Reactivity is habitual and driven by emotion that we may not even recognize. Whereas when we respond appropriately, we can be kind. We can be compassionate. There's a real difference between responding and reacting, And when we have this equanimity, we're not driven by ill will. We're not driven by fear or anger or greed, craving. We see clearly. We're not clueless about what's happening. It's really difficult, but it's really necessary. Especially now, because there's so much reactivity. There's so much, these harsh, really awful, unpleasant, harming emotions kind of running the day. And but it's important that we cultivate this so we keep that sense of connection. And the other day I saw this poem that was written by Zenju Earthlyn Manuel, who's a Zen priest, and she wrote this back in 2010. And I want to read it because it's about loving kindness. It's called For All Beings, and I'll put this link in the chat as well, so you can have it. I'll do that later. But it's for all beings. May all beings be cared for and loved, be listened to, understood, and acknowledged despite different views. Be accepted for who they are in this moment. Be afforded patience. Be allowed to live without fear of having their lives taken away or their bodies violated. May all beings be well in its broadest sense, be fed, be clothed, be treated as if their life is precious, be held in the eyes of each other as family. May all beings be appreciated, feel welcomed anywhere on the planet, Be freed from acts of hatred and desperation, including war, poverty, slavery, and street crimes. Live on the planet housed and protected from harm. Be given what is needed to live fully without scarcity. Enjoy life, living without fear of one another. Be able to speak freely in a voice and mind of undeniable love. May all beings receive and share the gifts of life. Be given time to rest, be still, and experience silence. May all beings be awake. So when I read that, and as I think about that, I ask the question, what comes up for me is, how can we not want this? How can we not want this, all of these things for everyone, for all beings? And I think it also says, what also comes up is, if we feel that some folks should be excluded from this, that's worth noting. If in your awareness you go, yes, but not these people, it's important to see that without judgment, but just an invitation to pay attention and say, what gets in the way? The invitation, the aspiration is for wishing goodwill to all beings, omitting none. And if we omit some, we have to say why and spend some time on that. And we may not get there overnight. This is not something that we just get and we're done. It's a recognition of our conditioning, of our biases, of a lot of background that we get to practice with, that we get to investigate, but perhaps hold out as an intention. One day I hope I can get to that place of wanting this for all beings. Do we treat certain people with contempt? Do the Brahma Viharas, these heart practices, go out the window with certain people we deem unworthy? I don't know. We all have to ask ourselves these questions, and I know I cannot take the risk for myself. I don't want to go down that slippery slope because I can feel what it's like when I get into that place. It's tight, it's constricted, we're bound up. This one, yes, this one. And it's often when I'm not paying attention, when I'm not thinking, that I think I can treat people in an unkind way. And you've all heard me, or many of you have heard me talk about the gun store that's around the corner, that I see that the people that shop there, they park all kinds of ways, a lot of times illegally, blocking stuff, blocking this, blocking that. And when I see that happen in front of my house, it doesn't happen all the time, but it happens every once in a while, I will just kind of snap. And I remember I have run out my front door and gone out there and yelled at them. Or if I remember coming back from a walk once and some guy was doing something, moving all my garbage cans, and I just ran up to him and just started going, "What are you doing?" La, 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 la. And not being very nice about it. And then after the fact, I realized it's not wise to yell at people who are buying guns. It's not a smart thing to do. And B, I don't want to talk to people like that. I thought about it afterwards, but my head says, well, they deserve it because I'm judging them based on what I think is appropriate and what I think is not appropriate about what they're doing. Well, they're going to the gun store, so therefore I judge them. And I was doing a metta practice a couple of months ago, and I was talking about difficult people. And I realized, I have to offer metta to these people. These are difficult. These are the difficult people for me right now. These are the ones that are front and center. And it's like, even them. If I'm going to do this practice and I believe in it fully, it's transformational, it's the path to liberation, then I have to do it for people that I can easily judge. And in fact, I was driving home just now, and I was turning the corner, and I'm like, now they're open Sunday, immediately judging because they used to be closed on Sunday, And I'm like, come back, Mary, come back. It's so reactive. It's that reactivity, it's that anger, it's that judging, but it's so easy to happen. So we have to be fully aware. We have to pay attention. We have to not get caught up in the I, me, mine. Sister Clear Grace Dayananda, who is a nun in Thich Nhat Hanh's tradition, I heard her talk last year, and she said, we can't pick up the stick of self. The me, the my, it's like, I don't like them. They bother me. Instead of recognizing that it's like all beings. All beings. You know? And when I go them, I've dehumanized them. And then it's just an easy roll. So many people on this planet have dehumanized so many other people, and we see the horror that's going on. Even nastiness, even if it's not violence, it's just nastiness, because there's so much us and then so much polarization. So we have to find out where that is in our lives, and see where we hit a wall, and then just kind of look at this, do I want them to be clothed and fed? Of course I do. How do I get to that place in my heart? How do I cultivate that tender heart for all beings? It's when I'm not paying attention, when I've lost my awareness, my mindfulness, and stuck in stories. That's when I fall into harming. And I want to say that it doesn't mean we acquiesce or we condone what people are doing. We don't. We take care of ourselves. We set boundaries. We work towards ending harm, but we don't dehumanize. We don't wish bad for people. Schadenfreude is that being happy at the misfortune of others, and it's not. I used to relish that. But it's, you know what? Why? We don't want that, or we hope to not want that. It's a continual practice of paying attention and softening our hearts. And the one thing I want to finish, or before I finish, I want to talk about one thing we have to pay attention to with these 4 beautiful qualities is the near enemies, because they can be really tricky. And each of them have what they call near enemies, things that are seem just like it, or seem like the real thing, but aren't quite. And for loving kindness, there's this, loving kindness is unconditional. And the near enemy is this idea of conditionality. It's like, I will be kind to you if you do X, Y, or Z. We come to this with expectations. Sometimes it's transactional. I'll be kind to you, I'll be nice if you behave a certain way, or things to that, and that. And loving kindness, unconditional. All of these are unconditional. And then compassion, the near enemy, one of the near enemies is pity, which puts us on a different level. It's kind of a looking down. Oh, you poor thing. I'm glad I'm not you. We may not say that, but that's the sense of pity. Again, I and me and mine, and judging and comparing, instead of having this empathetic heart, this heart that is touched. Wow, with the shared humanity that comes with compassion. Or at times we can be overwhelmed. Your suffering is too much for me to bear. That's, again, making it about us, instead of just honoring what they're doing or what their experience is. And then appreciative joy is, that idea of Schadenfreude, feeling joy when they don't have good fortune. And it's wholesome good fortune. It's not like somebody robs a bank and then they have a lot of money. It's not that. It's wholesome good fortune, like having a baby or getting a job or having a relationship, or just being excited about running the marathon. It's just free from any attachment, free from making it about me. I'll be happy for you if I get some too. There's a little conditionality in there. And then the near enemy of equanimity is indifference, this flavor of not feeling at all. But equanimity is not that. We're fully present, we're fully aware, we feel the discomfort, we feel the joy, and we're present and respond appropriately. Whereas indifference is this, oh, I don't feel anything. It's like an armor. We have a wall we build up. And another aspect of that is spiritual bypassing, where we take spiritual principles and hit it over the head, hit feelings over the head and go, I'm not feeling you because equanimity. Equanimity means I don't feel anything. And that's, as I said, it doesn't mean that. We're fully engaged in the human condition and life, fully there. So it's not indifference. It's this all is moving towards what I call the undefended heart. We are open. We are present. We're not lost in craving, aversion, delusion. We're free of those defilements. And when we're free of the defilements, we have right view. We see clearly. We're fully present. We're open, and our minds and hearts are imbued with loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, equanimity. So it's a continual practice of paying attention. And I made a note because somebody was talking about this the other night. I was talking with somebody about the other night, and we were talking about being driven by anger. And it can be a jumping off point to something, to working towards ending injustice. When we're caught in compassion, or when we're experiencing compassion, and when we see people causing harm, we don't acquiesce. We work to end that, but we don't, hate them. We just say, you can't do that. I want you clothed and fed, but you can't do that. But anger is not sustainable. It's really, it's quite toxic in and of itself. And so it can't, is not a way to move through the world. So it might show up, but not in I wouldn't suggest using that as a way to move through the world for a very long period of time. So I want to invite you to reflect on where you are in this invitation to be loving, where you are in this invitation to wish well for all beings. It's not, as I said, there's no judgment, because I have talked to people who have, I really trying this, but X, Y, or Z, I can't, because of abuse, because of experiences, because of various reasons. And so the practice is to not say, oh, you're a bad person or you're doing it wrong, but to really be willing to sit with that and say, big scheme of things, I want to get to that, but this is the wall I'm hitting right now. And to just acknowledge that. Just acknowledge that and see at some point how that can soften. That's the only ask, and what's getting in the way. So yeah, so thank you, my friends, for your as always kind and generous attention. And I'd love to know how you're doing with this, or how this is landing for you, or if there are any questions or comments. Yeah. Not easy, but well worth it. So thank you, my friends, and I've already put the donation link in the chat, and whatever you can afford to support Insight Community of the Desert really is appreciated. It helps us with our online stuff and keeping going, and supports the teachers. So thank you for that. Thank you for your practice. And don't forget to be kind to yourself and to others. And remember that we don't just practice for our own benefit, but we practice for the benefit of all beings. May all beings be free. So thank you, everyone. I'll see you next time. Much love.